All right. Hi there, everybody. Welcome to My Other's Keeper. I'm back here again with my sister Glynnis. And today we're going to be talking about some very difficult topics, not the least of which is childhood essay. And if that is going to be triggering for you, please turn it off now because it's going to be pretty full of it. And if it is something that you wish to engage and ask questions, we will take polite questions. We will not put up with any crass or bullying type of questions. Those, I don't know if I have the means to get rid of them, but they will decidedly be ignored. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you do have questions, let's see.
Yeah, you can see any questions that come in. You can see questions that come in, but I can't see any, so you'll have to read them. But
Can
yeah,
you, if I have it like this, can you see on the side where there might be questions?
no, I'm just on the StreamYard app. I'm not in YouTube, so I'm not
No, no,
sure.
no. This is it'll come through
Oh,
on the StreamYard app.
okay, hang on. I gotta hit the chat button. There's
There you
that
go.
chat button.
Yes. See, we're all
Oh,
learning here. This is all new for
okay,
us.
okay. Now I just see chat, but no video.
Okay.
Yeah, chat and
Go back
comments,
to
but then I don't see video. So I'll have to make if I do that, I'll have to switch back and forth to see, or just let you read them
I'll
because
just tell
it's
her.
just
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll just
okay?
tell you.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, but yeah, I just want to reiterate, even from my perspective, I'm going to be sharing a very personal and very intimate story that can be very distressing to some people. So if you feel that this is not something that you are comfortable with, or that may be a bother to you, I will not be offended. Please take care of yourself, and we'll be happy for you to make a pass on this one and join us next time. Please just
Yes,
take care of yourself. Thank
absolutely.
you.
All
All
right,
right.
Sissy. So let's get started. Um,
Yeah,
I seem to recall you were born at a very young age.
a very
And
young age, but I was smart enough to be born. I was smart enough to be born right on my birthday.
wow,
Yeah,
cool. That is awesome. She was smart right from the get-go.
I was right from the start, right from the beginning.
Go.
I
Yes.
gotta get my notes back again. Okay.
Okay.
So,
So, where do you want to start with all of this?
I guess starting at the beginning of my experiences and kind of
Mhm.
how the timeline of things began and developed to some point, and then we can kind of get into more specific aspects of that. I was first touched by a relative close to my age who did not live in our home when I was about, we were discussing before, I'm thinking probably 8 or 9, but I'm really fuzzy about that time frame. Um, it was not just a one-time thing. It did happen over a number of different occasions. There was at one incident another individual involved who was also near to our ages as well, but that was not in any way part of, it wasn't in any way part of the ongoing aspect. Okay. Um, then when I was 12, my father touched me for the first time. He touched very beginning breast buds, and he very specifically asked, "Do you mind?" And I said, "Yes." And gaslighter that he was, his next response was, "I don't think you do." And my immediate thought was, "Oh, he knows about this previous experience." So I felt almost guilted. I felt like, well, I can't stop him now because he knows that I've done this before, that this has happened before. So that kind of got that started. And that was a much more involved, and that was obviously, much more ongoing experience. Um, it just, and very slowly groomed me even physically for ultimate um, full-on acts, shall we say.
Mhm.
Um, he did take my virginity when I was, I want to say 13 or just around before or after her 13th birthday. I'm not entirely certain. Again, it all kind of blends together after a while. But that was
Trauma tends to do that, though, doesn't it?
yes, it does. Yeah, it does. It all kind of bleeds together. But there are certain, like I said, the very first moment that I remember, those things stick out clearly as well. I remember the event of the eventual, penetrative act. But again, I don't remember where, when, what day, But it's just sometimes what you find is those specific incidents that will stand out more than others. So that became an ongoing thing all through my teen years, from those just around the 13 until I left home, actually. And even one particular incident that occurred even after I had left home when I was already 18, and I came back for a home visit, coming back from college, and that was it. That was the last one, and that was it. But also because at that point I had people in my life um, who could back me up, and people in my life who could uphold me and support me in what was happening in my experience. I mean, to whatever detail that they happen to know. But yeah,
May I just point in
yes,
right there?
please.
The reason she didn't have anybody at home is we had no idea.
No,
He was
no,
such a good gaslighter, and he was so good at masking everything. He was a raging alcoholic. I never knew that I saw him drunk.
no,
Apparently I
no,
had,
I don't think.
but I
No,
never
okay,
knew that I did. Um,
yeah,
and he was so good at masking everything that when
yeah,
it came to this particular disgusting thing he was doing, it was just another mask that
another
he could put
thing.
on.
Yeah,
And Glennis was so cowed. I mean, she just,
yeah,
like, what do you say to somebody who's
yeah,
doing this to you, right?
yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then from my perspective of, well, I couldn't say anything either because I was very buried under a lot of the guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of the, okay, this is taboo. You just don't talk about this. This is a terrible thing. So I spent a lot of my effort and a lot of my energy and anxiety covering and schooling my face. If this topic ever comes up, okay, how do I set my face so to not give away I know what you're talking about, right? So yeah, it was a lot of that. Um, so yeah, it was just such an ongoing thing through my teen years. It was just a part of my teen experience, unfortunately. Um, yeah, we'll get into other kind of specific, I wouldn't say
Do what you're
details, but
comfortable with.
specific. Yeah, I guess I into specific results and and indications of that later on. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah.
So that started out a whole pattern of relationships for you that
Yes, it did.
were very obviously not healthy.
No, I did not date a lot when I was in school. When I was a teenager, I didn't date, not because I couldn't or wasn't allowed to. It's just we lived in a place where there just wasn't a lot of options. I went on a few dates, but not anything that became any kind of ongoing boyfriend relationship. Um, so it was not specifically anything relating to my history or, his thumb on me or anything like that. It was just circumstance. I just didn't have options to date at that point.
Yeah, it was a
But when
very
I did,
limited gene pool there, wasn't it?
it really was. It really
Yeah.
was. But the first guy that I did manage to date, I guess, and who expressed any kind of interest in me, I married him. we, we
As
met
many
in
do.
Bible college. That's me too. Yeah, we met in Bible college, and it was good and bad thing. I can think of in retrospect why I came into that relationship as hard and heavy as I did, um, because I needed that. I had grown up needing that, relation over me, or that authority over me. So another male relationship over me I was normal. That's what I was expected to find. That's what I expected to find, because I did not have any value in myself other than in relation to another male. So I went from parental home, to marriage home. Like
Mhm.
I was 19 when I got married. I lived alone in an apartment for that year, kind of 18 a little bit until almost 20. But even then, in a relationship still. So I've never really been alone until that marriage ended sometime later. So, but yeah, it did, and it was then that, tragic relationships, regrettable choices were made at the end of that marriage. Um, I acted out sexually in ways that I had never availed myself of as a younger woman, as a younger person. So yeah, I made a lot of tragic and regrettable choices, but they're choices. I mean, those are experiences that I can't deny. I may have regrets, but they're in the past. They're hard in the past, and yeah, it's just how it goes.
Well, and the other thing is
Yeah.
that even though they are regrettable, like choices that I've made in the past, even though they are
Right.
regrettable, I don't really regret them because they've
Mhm.
made me who I am. They've put me in this
Yes.
place where I can talk to people with empathy and compassion and knowledge and understanding.
Yes.
Whereas if I would have had nothing go wrong in my life, I feel really bad for people who've had nothing go wrong in their life because the
I
smallest
kind
thing
of
happens
do.
and suddenly they're gone, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but for those who have been through some serious problems, I think it has given us more character as well.
I think
Like I
so
said, it
too.
gives us
Yeah.
this ability to be empathetic and to
Yeah.
listen with deeper ears than
Yeah. Yeah.
otherwise might have been.
Yeah. I think it also gives me insight into nuances of language, and I also have ADHD. So it one of my aspects of my ADHD is I'm very attuned to facial expressions and just the nuances of language and voice. So I firmly believe that my experiences have combined with that to make me very intuitive if someone is talking about, or what they don't say, or that I can pick up on those, and empathize more strongly with someone who maybe has a similar history. Yeah.
Yeah, the nonverbal cues of how you're sitting,
Yes.
how you hold your head, whether or not
Hmm.
you smile all the way up to your eyes, like the
Yeah.
physical
Yeah.
nonverbal cues. Whereas
Yeah.
my ADHD helps me focus on tone of voice and that sort of
Okay.
thing. And
Yeah.
so that's why I'm very sensitive when somebody sounds rude. Um,
Right.
it just
Yes.
it's like nails on a chalkboard for me.
Yeah. I
Um,
know it right away. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I
exactly.
have a similar thing. I can hear the tones of voice. I told my new husband, now when we got married, I said, the first thing I want to tell you, don't ever try to lie to me, because I will know it.
Yeah,
No, but it's true. Don't
yeah,
ever try to lie to me, because it will not happen. Because
yeah.
I know in your body language, and the tone of your voice, and what you
Oh
don't
yeah,
say, how carefully you choose your words, what you're not. Yeah, just don't try. So yeah, I have a lot of that as well. In
yeah.
those, being very attuned to tones of voice and language. Yeah.
Okay. So what
Yeah.
else have you noticed over the years? Um, let's just back up a little bit and
Okay.
talk about family relationships. Your
Okay.
relationship with myself, with our mother, with
Mhm.
other family members we might have been around. Like we were around certain cousins a lot, and we played a
Yes.
lot with those cousins. How
Mhm.
might this have affected those types of relationships for you?
I think um, the biggest things that I can name off the top of my head are relations with you and our mom.
Hmm.
Had very specific dynamics, um, and then the division between relations with his side of the family and cousins on his
Yeah.
side of the family versus cousins on mom's side of the family.
Yeah.
Those were very differently, those were approached
Oh, yeah.
very differently.
Yeah.
Um, but in all honesty, even kind of combining those two, the two parental sides, I I held myself at arm's length from everybody,
Mm-hmm.
everybody. So no, cousins didn't know, uncles, aunts didn't know until much, much later.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so
Well,
I just,
everybody knew.
I just, well, yeah, we thought, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and to clarify, the only time that people did learn about it, whether family or not, or even people in the communities, was when he was arrested. When I was, I want to say 18. I think I was
You were
18
18
at
or
the
19. It was May of, you would have been either 18 or 19
just
because
18
I
then
know
because I
mom and I left in May
okay, of what year do you remember
of
specifically?
2008.
2008 or 88?
2000, sorry, yeah, blah, 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 of,
88.
of 88. I think you graduated in 87. And
Yeah.
yeah, it would have been in 88.
Okay, so yeah. So yes, that would have been 18.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I got married in 89 at just before my 20th birthday.
So you
So
would have
okay, so
been
yeah, 19, just 19 then. Okay, yes. So
just okay.
yes, he was arrested
Hmm.
um, after I disclosed something at college, at Bible college, and because my younger sister was still a minor, social services, the government had to get involved and make her safe in her home, and they took over that process from there. I did not lay charges. The authorities themselves um, proceeded with that. Um, but yeah, he was arrested and he did spend some months in prison of some time around. I'm not sure. Yeah, 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 months. Yes, that's it. Months.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, that's a whole other discussion that I don't think we need to have right now. But that, unfortunately, is the system we have in place in Canada.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but yeah,
Until that time,
he
I
was a
wanted to be a lawyer.
yeah,
Until that
yeah.
time, I was really keen on going to law school.
Mhm.
And once that happened, it's like, yeah, there is no justice in our justice system. There's no
No,
way.
just
I
there
became a
isn't. Yeah,
hairdresser.
there isn't. Yes, hey. But yeah, and that's how people outside of our immediate family found out anything is because it made the news. It made the national news. Okay, because I mean, he was a minister of a church. He's pastor of a church. So this kind of made the news. And in the late '80s, I'm not sure how many viewers are remembering that time period in history and in the news. Um, Assaults like this and behavior like this in the church was becoming um, more and more spoken of. Yeah, I wouldn't say it exploded in happening. It was just became more
Yeah.
reported. It
Yeah.
became people were becoming aware of it. So that's
It
why
was
this.
becoming, it was becoming more visible.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. But yeah, and that's really the only reason that a lot of our extended family learned about that is when they heard it on news reports. Um,
Yeah.
so that it, I wouldn't say that it affected any relationships that way. I mean, as much as you know, a lot of family coming along and just surrounding me and and supporting me. I'm so sorry. What can we do? We've got your back. We'll help you. Whatever you need, we are behind you. And I've got that, yes, from both sides, parental and or paternal, maternal sides. I've got that
Yeah.
from both sides.
Yeah.
I have an uncle that's out in the East Coast, and he was this close to flying out to me. Like, I'm not
Yep.
even kidding.
Nope.
He was right there.
He was. Yeah. It
Yeah.
was actually his
Um,
brother, their
yeah.
oldest brother. So that would have been my
Oh,
mom's oldest brother,
yeah.
who actually phoned mom and said, either you're here by supper time or I'm coming to
Mhm.
get you.
Yeah,
and that's
yeah, I
when
believe
she and
that.
I left.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah. So that's, yeah, and it's interesting that in recent years, about a half dozen years ago, an uncle on his side passed away, and family gets together for memorials and stuff, and conversations go on, and in that particular evening, and yeah, that the conversation comes around, and how are you doing, and finally getting their perspectives on their feelings when they learned of it.
Hmm.
Um, and how appalled and how disgusted and how hurt that they were that their blood relative was capable
Hmm.
was doing this. There was really an interesting insight to me even at that point, some whatever 25, 30, whatever years later, to
Yeah.
hear their perspectives about how their feelings had been and continue to be,
Hmm.
even up to then. So, but yeah, my I guess relationship with you and mom both were still at arm's length, but for similar reasons, but not really. Um, I think more so because I was his favorite. I was daddy's little girl. Um, but because
Yay.
he, yay, um, but because I was so clearly his favorite that it really drove that block between you and me more specifically, because it didn't seem to be anything you could do to make it any better or to make him love you the way you needed him to, right?
Yeah.
And so I would well imagine that it caused a lot of resentment in you, and I'm very sorry for that. And I'm fully aware that that's something that you will have had to deal with for the last 40 whatever years. I understand that, but
Oh,
that's
come on.
probably a
I'm
very
only
large.
42 years old. Don't
See,
make it.
that's, stop it. um, but yeah, I think no, I think it affected even more my relationship with my mom. Is that I still have a very arm's reach relationship with her. She's my mom. I love her to death. I would do anything for her, but I still have a very, I don't want to say disconnected. I have a more distant relationship, I think, with her even now. And there's any number of other underlying and very deep, kind of deep running emotional, reasons for that as well.
Yeah.
Not least of which was this, and her husband was doing this, and why didn't she protect, and why didn't she say something when she did know, and it's just, but yeah, it. I think that's probably the I wouldn't say the most damaged, but the most affected relationship I think that it left me with my mom. Um, like I said, just for any number of other different reasons. So
I would suggest it may be the longest lasting damage.
yes, I
And
think I
that's,
think so.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I mean it's definitely more personal, I think, than any relationship that you and I would have had. It was
Hmm.
more personal,
Hmm.
individual, um, emotional injury, I think,
Yeah.
that I received or that I absorbed into myself. Yeah, than
Well,
any
I was
other.
your little sister. I couldn't have protected you,
No,
right?
you couldn't have done anything. No,
And
exactly. So
yeah.
yeah, but yeah. So, and there was also an aspect kind of floating over it of, you're better than your mother. You're better than her. She's a this and this, and that's why I need you.
Hmm.
Yeah, there was some aspect of that as well. So
He was a good gaslighter. I seem to
he
recall a few
really,
years ago, um,
yeah,
you not realizing that it was dad who was the one who was bad with money, not mom, because he always
yes,
told you he was the one who was good with money, and therefore he had to,
yes,
put a thumb down on that. And
hmm,
yeah,
yeah.
he always made himself the big
Yeah,
hero
yeah.
of
He was the one
whatever.
giving her checks to pay for groceries, and he had the control of the. Yeah, okay. It makes sense though. It makes sense though. But yeah, just those things that I was just always blind to as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So blind
Well,
to a lot of
neither of us.
things.
Sorry.
No, I ended up being blind to a lot of things and a lot of things outside of myself. Um, yeah, because I was so insulated and I was so isolated, yeah, but more insulated in myself to protect myself and my mentality and my emotional state. I have to keep my hands away from my face,
Yeah.
but but I insulated and I encapsulated myself so much into my own head, um, to protect myself, protect my mind and my heart from outside forces, from showing, from with the things that I received into myself. So yeah, I there's a lot of aspects of life and growing up and even people around me and relationships around me that I just never saw. I never looked outside of myself enough to have known it. Yeah.
Now, when you were young, especially when it first started, how did he keep you quiet about it?
He he would tell me, you can't say anything or they'll come and take me away. They'll come and arrest me. Like, yeah. But I mean, and the thing is, I was also old enough. Like, I wasn't like, oh, 3 or 4 year old that just started out secret. It was, you know, I was a teenager. I was old enough to know that, yeah, this is something definitely illegal. This is definitely something we don't want people to know. But that, yeah, one second. But that
Mhm.
if you do tell anyone, if you do say anything, they'll come and take me away, and that'll be even worse. So go ahead.
The huge irony at the time,
Mhm.
he was in Bible school and he was the town cop.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that's
So
right.
welcome to
That
the
was,
dysfunction of our lives.
yeah, yeah. Like we've said for years, we put the fun in dysfunction.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, we just, I mean, we've introduced before that we grew up in a very toxic and very traumatic home from any number of different
Yeah.
aspects.
Yeah.
Not only this SA on my part, but even financial issues, somewhat physical.
At
Yeah,
times. No, at
yeah,
times.
at times, yeah. But just not to the extent of, okay, we all walk around with bruises kind of thing. It was never like that. Okay.
No.
But yes, he could be heavy handed with discipline sometimes. And I have specific memories of certain incidents. But
Same
yeah,
here.
that wasn't the major part of what we experienced.
No.
No. So,
I do have one memory that was very specific. And from the time we were very, very little, I think I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, our dad started
mhm.
teaching us how to use firearms. And remember, we
Yes.
would go to Nana's place and
Yeah.
we would
Yeah.
plink the um, cans off the fence. Mom
Yeah.
wasn't happy,
Yeah.
but he
No.
taught us
But
from a
yeah.
very young age how to handle firearms.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
in our teenage years, Dad was out and he was sighting in his rifle. He came
Mhm.
inside and he pointed it at Glennis's head. And
That
I'm like,
okay. Now
"Get
you
that
remind me. Yeah,
down.
I do remember
Get
that.
that down." And I
Yeah.
freaked out at him. He's like, "Oh, it's empty.
Mhm.
It's empty. I know this thing." I'm like, "Dad,
Pointed it at the
don't you
floor.
ever."
Yeah.
And he pointed it
Yeah.
at the floor and shot a hole in the floor.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do remember that now that you bring that up. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I do. Okay. But yeah, it's no, just because I mean, he thought he was always better than that. He just always thought he was, it's not going to happen to him. He's smarter than that. He's smarter than anything else. He's smarter than everybody. Our father. This is something else I want to mention. Our father he passed away a couple of years ago. Was a diagnosed sociopath. Okay, that people now, medical science or psychologists will now call it antisocial behavior. But at the time of his diagnosis, it was still called sociopathy. So that's where that comes from. Um, but now I forget what my finger was for. Nuts, nuts.
I'm sorry, I can't help you with that one.
No, okay, it'll come back.
Okay.
It'll come back to it.
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah, but
So,
yeah. Go ahead.
how has it affected um, your self-image, I guess, over the
Oh,
years. It
yeah.
will have changed, I imagine, over the years, but how did it affect your self-image?
I had none.
Yeah.
Just putting it that way, I had none. Like all through my adulthood, I mean, all through my teen years and my, young adulthood, even even through my marriage, even at like up until, you know, half dozen years ago, 10 years ago, um, I I I was told that the only value I had was what I could give. That was it. That was all that I had to offer. I had no I had no identity other than that. I was never told that I was smart or beautiful or funny or intelligent, or I was never taught those things. So really the only thing I had left to fall back on was sexuality, and that was it. Um, so yeah, I mean, I still I still don't think of myself as a particularly intelligent person. Like we've had conversations in our last video, such my husband's a member of Mensa, and he tells me all the time, "You're such a smart thing. My wife is so smart. My girl is so smart," and I don't feel that because my intelligence didn't it didn't help me. Like it didn't get me to college. It barely got my high school diploma. It it didn't help me to keep or maintain any jobs. Like it just I didn't feel like any intelligence that I had what was did me any good. So I had my IQ tested when I was a very small child. I think it might have been first or second grade, and it came back at like 135, 137 or something. And I just
Oh,
thought, oh,
great.
yeah, yeah. But I but I had always in myself had thought, oh, okay, well, what does that mean? It's like, yeah, I'm no, okay, is that I guess that must be just average. Because I didn't feel any smarter. I didn't feel any higher or better or more of anything than anybody else. So I just thought that was kind of everybody's, that's average. Well, no, it's not.
Except in
When added
kindergarten, you were
on the
teaching
value,
a grade 2
yeah,
child how to read.
grade one, an Italian, yeah, grade like
Yeah,
a first grade, second grade Italian immigrant child to read
yeah,
English. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's just like with my, like I said, I was never taught, I was never encouraged that I was smart at all. So I never had that to work with or to advance myself with. So yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, otherwise, self-esteem, I really have none. I was mousy, quiet, insulated, isolated, just very small, just insignificant person. I'm 5'2". Like I'm always kind of I'm on the shorter side of everybody. All my classmates, I was always right in the middle, right in the front of the middle, because I was always the shortest. So I was, and then the teeth. I never got my teeth fixed, and I had really thick glasses from when I was about 8 or 9 years old and onward. Yeah, I felt backwards. I felt awkward. I felt different in any number of unappealing ways. All my life, all of my life. So
yeah.
yeah,
And things like our financial situation certainly didn't help. We did not have a
no,
lot of money. Um,
no,
Actually, we had barely any money. And part
yeah,
of that
yeah,
was Dad's, uh, his mental state that he was better than everyone, and
yeah,
it would get him in trouble at work, and
yeah,
then he would get fired, or he would
yeah,
drink and he would get fired, or,
yes,
any number of
yeah,
different things would
yeah,
do that.
exactly. So
Yeah,
yeah, so exactly. So with little to no money, we didn't have all the new toys. We didn't have new bikes every year. We didn't have the new clothes. We didn't. There were so many things that were normal parts of growing up in the 70s and 80s that we just never took part in because we never could.
yeah,
We just, yeah, they were never options were available to us either. So, yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Not to mention
yeah,
that disobedience of any sort was a sin.
Yeah.
And my dad
Yeah.
being a pastor, it was like, you have to be perfect. Don't you dare disobey.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
huge in our house. Huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And that
Um,
was also something that mom kind of took on as well, is the way that she had been raised as well.
yeah.
It's appearances. You look good. You don't, if it looks like you're together, then you got it. It's always appearances. What do people see in you? And I remember what my
Mhm.
finger was for. Something that you will notice between Kim and me when we talk about our father is the terms that we use.
Mhm.
She calls him dad. I do not. I'll call him either by his first name, which I won't give here, or my father. There's a very significant reason for that, that I
Can't
observed into
imagine.
myself. Yeah, imagine that. But that it's what I have come to understand in myself is what makes a dad versus what makes a father. Any guy with a pair on him can be a father, okay? But it takes a very special person to be a dad, a loving, nurturing, supportive, encouraging person. And he was never that to me. So he is not my dad. My dad is my stepdad, who passed away a bunch of years ago. No, our father I will always either call by father or his first name,
Yeah.
and that'll be the major difference that viewers will notice. But we are talking about the same person.
Yeah.
It's just different terms that we have each grown up, have given to ourselves to use.
And see, he
So
didn't have the same level of dysfunction toward me. He
no,
wasn't a great dad by any stretch,
no,
but there wasn't near the level of dysfunction toward me.
right.
So I still did call him dad. And our
Mhm.
stepdad, because I would call our mom mama, she was my
Mhm.
mama, I called him
Yeah,
papa because mama and
that's right.
papa go together.
That's right.
So
Yeah,
that
exactly.
was the difference in names for me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And our stepdad I could call dad because that's the relationship
Yeah,
that I needed. And that's what he became for me, that nurturing and loving and supporting and upholding kind of person for me. And that's
yeah,
that's who he became for me. Yeah.
yeah. Our
So
stepdad
yeah.
was a
So,
wonderful dad.
oh, he was just
Yeah.
I have I'm gonna show my tattoo. My tattoo. This
Yes.
yeah, that might be a
His
different story,
handwriting. He
but
wrote something,
that
so
that's his handwriting. He wrote me a letter a couple of years before he passed away. He had Alzheimer's. So this is some of the last handwriting he was able to do. So he sent me a letter just around for Christmas one particular year. And it was just so significant to me. I had it tattooed, my very first tattoo. And this is a snippet. This is a portion of the letter. It's not the whole thing, but it says, "You are strong and brave. I love you, Dad." He
mhm.
was so
Mhm.
proud of both you and I. But that's what the letter was, is I'm so proud to have been your dad. Just want
Yeah.
to let you know how proud I am to be your dad.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was pretty special. Yeah.
So, what have you done to be able to heal over the years? I know it has been and still is a long journey, but what have you been
hmm
able to do to heal?
I went to therapy. I went to very specific, one-on-one talk therapy with a couple of different therapists right from the beginning, right when it was first disclosed, until a few years into my first marriage. Um, just talking to counselors and therapists very specifically about memories, self-esteem, self-image, some of the things that I could take away with me and hold on to um, going forward. It's things like um, shame, dealing with concepts of shame and guilt. Shame is not mine. Never shame. Never. That shame belongs to the person who did this to me, not to mine. The guilt, the same. The guilt is not mine. Never mine. Um, the thought of I lost and I was I lost this battle. There's no shame in losing a battle that is fought unfairly. That is a phrase that sticks in my head word for word. There is no shame in losing a battle that is fought unfairly, because that battle that I was up against was stacked against me from the beginning. So there was no shame that I was not able to overcome that at the time. Okay. Um, and just even, I mean, also phrases, I am important. I am okay. Me as a person, I'm an okay person. I'm important. I'm a valuable and worthy person. I am okay. Just those phrases that I wrote down so many times. I am valuable. I am worthy. I am okay. And that's always something that I want anytime I encounter someone with a history similar to mine, is those phrases. Those two specific phrases. There's no shame. You are okay. You are valuable. You are worthy. And my throat is drying up just because I haven't drunk anything. My throat's dry. But yeah, those I guess would be the two things I would always pass on to someone that may have a history similar to mine. So
Have you
yeah,
had much chance to interact with people with a similar history?
not as much as I would have hoped, but then at
Mhm.
the same time, I don't put myself out to like
Yeah.
to you do, talking in groups and bringing your history and having your speech that you say. I've never been in that kind of a situation where I have encountered face to face more than one or two times anyone to have to deal with that, but also because I am not any kind of mental health professional. Someone with histories like ours needs much more intensive and personal and much more involved and educated treatment and interaction than I could ever provide. I mean, I can psychoanalyze to death, but when it comes down to, okay, you as a person, you as a survivor, need this and this and this, I can't give you that because I'm not qualified, to provide those things. So that's most of, I can empathize. I've been where you are. I understand the feelings you may be having. Um, these were my feelings, and it's okay. It will be okay. That's kind of the extent of what I can offer, is just that empathy and the compassion. But as far as any other, you know, psychoanalytical help, I'm not qualified.
I'm
So,
actually going to plug something. I'm going to start doing mental health Mondays.
yes.
And what I am going to be talking about, this first one is going to be about mental health first aid. And so,
Yay!
yeah,
Just like that.
you don't have to be a doctor. You don't
No.
have to be a nurse. You don't have to be a medical professional, an EMT, to put a bandage on a wound,
Right.
right? You just
Yeah.
need basic first aid. And that's what this whole program is that I'm going to talk about
Yeah.
this week, is called Mental Health
Mhm.
First Aid. This is the website you can go to in Canada to access it. I don't know if there has to be something similar in the US and elsewhere.
I would
But in Canada,
presume.
I've taken the program twice now. It is
Excellent.
incredible. It's amazing.
Mhm.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I've been able to help a lot of people just put that bandage on that little wound. Like,
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
fix it,
That's perfect.
but I
But
can
yeah,
get you to somebody
exactly.
who can. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's oftentimes the best thing that you can offer is a listening ear, that compassion, and here are some tools that you may not be aware of. You know,
Yeah.
so I mean, individual therapy that I went to, and also in um, group therapy that I went to, and being able to talk to other people, um, males and females, but our particular group, they kept, specifically one to the other. Um, excuse me, just because of the very intimate nature of this conversation we would have.
Mhm.
Um, and being able to look across a room and know that I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
You know, I am not by far the only person who feels this way, who has these memories. And, no, my experience may not be exactly like yours. Maybe you were a younger child and are just recovering memories of something that happened. And that can be inordinately more traumatic even than someone who was an older child, an older person like myself, who I didn't have the benefit of forgetting any of it. Like yeah. that's there's kind of a blessing and a curse as to, your brain shuts it out, but no, it was all there, but
Yeah.
yeah, but being able to sit with people in the room, and seeing that we have shared experiences and we can have that sympathy and that empathy for each other. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, do you remember it all, or have you been able to work through it enough so that you can say, okay, this is gone. I don't have to think about it anymore.
Yes, very much so. My primary dealing with it is to speak it out. So anytime that
Mm,
I would have had, a counseling session, a therapy session, these group sessions, if I was able to speak it in words, that can be resolved and it's gone. I won't say that I don't remember it. I don't remember specific incidents. I mean, I've never forgotten that it happened,
yeah.
but um, I can choose how to remember. That's something that I that's something that I picked up out of a fiction book that I read 20 years ago. Was
Hey,
the
just because it's
memories
fiction doesn't mean it's not true.
exactly and not valuable.
Exactly.
The memory will always be there. I will always remember. Um, but I can choose how to remember. I can I can allow the memory to well, I can allow the memory to happen with that shame, that guilt, with the defeated, with the victim mentality, or I can choose to remember as a survivor, as an
Mhm,
overcomer, as someone who has
mhm,
it's in my past. It's
mhm.
it's it has become a part of me and my upbringing. I mean, as much as the name of the high school I went to, and that's
Yeah,
about as significant as it has that I have allowed it to be. Yes, it's a part of my history. I am the survivor of child SA.
yeah,
It's just a statement of fact. I can't make it go away. I can't change it. I won't deny it. It's because of it's a part of what made me the way I am, just as much as I'm left-handed, just as much as the color of my hair, just like I said, just as much as the name of the high school I went to. It's just an aspect of my experience that is mine. That's made me
absolutely.
me. Yeah. So
So moving forward, um,
mhm.
how have you or can you use what you've learned over the years, the way you've healed over the years? How would you use that to move forward from now?
um I, I think being an advocate, going onto that website that you showed, I'm gonna go on there and read up on that and take that information and collect all that
Mhm,
information, being an advocate where it needs to be. Um,
mhm.
um, it is much more. It is much. It's not the dirty little secret it used to be in this, in decades before this. I mean, even yeah, like I don't know, just educating myself and being a strong example of you can overcome. Um, yeah, I don't know what else. It's just using my experience to show that yes, you're okay. Yes, life can be normal. Life can be positive and uplifting and yeah, and successful. It just in spite of, or even as a result of your
Yeah,
experiences.
yeah,
However you want to approach it. I mean, however an individual wants to approach it, in spite of, or maybe using is because of, as in your experiences, the things that you have accomplished, as a result of the experiences that you've had. It's very individual how they want to, you know, how they want to approach that, how they want to present it. But
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, that's something
yeah.
that, that's really important to remember. Is it in spite of, is
Hmm.
it because of, or is it, as a result of? Even because of
Yes.
versus a result of is even slightly nuanced in that way. It's a
Yeah.
little different.
Yep.
Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I mean, I will eventually tell my growing up essay stories, um,
Hmm.
somewhere down the road. I'm going to try not
Mhm.
to do essay every week,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we could.
Yeah.
Um, there's so many of
Yeah.
us.
There's so
Um,
many of us.
there's so
Yeah.
many. Unfortunately, that is the depravity of man, isn't it? Um,
Yes, it is. Yeah,
so,
it is.
but in your current marriage,
Mhm.
what sort of man have you married this time?
Oh my. Okay. Okay. Now you've heard me say this at Dad's funeral. I'm going to say it here because it's so cool. They say that a girl marries her dad. I did it twice. My first husband was not an abuser. He was not any kind of like this. He was not any kind of dysfunctional like that. You know, he never did any kind of childhood anything to our daughter. But he had he had very similar um, mental outlooks. He very similar character in many ways. Okay, so yeah, and we divorced after I learned that he had been cheating on me for some 8+ whatever years. You know, we're looking up into just the shy side of double digits at this point. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I married my father the first time, but then I married my dad. Um, Cam is loving. He is absolutely, supportive and intelligent and nurturing, and he's just everything that it's everything a girl wants her dad to be. And he's never had children, but I know that he would have loved my dad. He would have loved, our stepdad, and Dad would have loved him. Oh, that just makes me tear up. Dad would have loved him so much
Glynnis
because of
and
how
Cam
much.
started dating when uh, our stepdad, when Papa was very much in the throes of Alzheimer's.
Yeah,
A few weeks before he ended up dying, he got very sick with some
mhm.
bacterial infection, and they took him off all of his medications, and
Yeah,
he came back to us. So
yeah.
Glennis was able to introduce him to her
Yeah,
future
to
husband,
Cam.
and she was
Now Dad
able to
couldn't
get
speak
his
very
blessing.
much. Yeah,
Pardon?
Dad couldn't speak very much. He didn't.
Nope.
He didn't talk very loud. He had no
Well, he
voice at
hadn't
this point.
talked in so long, though. I mean, his throat
Yeah,
was like nothing.
was still going.
But
Yeah, no, he couldn't speak, but he stared Cam down. But yeah, he
yeah,
looked at him so intently, and there was just so much in that look and in those moments that they had. But yeah, he he would have loved Cam.
oh yeah,
But they would have gotten together. They would have just enjoyed each other so much. They had so many similar, interests and hobbies and trains. They were so very similar people. Um, but yeah, I got my dad because yeah, he's encouraging and he's supportive and he's loving and nurturing and just all those superlative things. He knows about my history.
yeah.
He knows in general terms of my history. He knows that it happened. He knows roughly when. And he knows the extent that it went to. But that's all he really feels that he needs to. And honestly, that's I'm satisfied with that because
Yeah.
it does not affect how we relate. It the only I guess the only effect that it may have had is in the first weeks and months of our marriage when
Yeah.
our intimacy begins. Is he wanted so very much to remind me that I have value to him more than just this intimacy. I have I am just I'm immensely more valuable as a person, as a female, and as his wife than just what we can do together, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
I guess I don't want to get a lot of terms and details, but you get that point. Yeah. But he wanted me. He needed so much for me to know, and I needed to know from him that the intimacy that we began was not because it was expected, and not because because I had to, or because it was the love
You
that we
didn't owe
shared.
him.
I didn't owe him. The love
Yeah.
we shared was because I wanted to, and I wanted to express
Yeah.
that love, not because, yeah. But yeah, that was probably the biggest effect, I think, that my history would have had in our kind of burgeoning relationship at that point.
Okay. And you've been married how long now?
6.5 years. We just passed. We just passed 7 years of actually dating. Just the beginning of the month. Oh, excuse me, my throat is so dry now.
That's okay.
Um,
Stress does that.
I should have brought a bottle of water up with me.
That's okay.
But yeah, when I separated from my first husband, I left that home and came to a new city and got involved in an adult singles church group. And he was in that same group. He's divorced as well, for any number of different reasons that I'm satisfied with. There was nothing untoward.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I mean, from the moment the moment I walked in that room and sat down at a table, and we happened to sit at the same table to do this Bible study thing, and he looked at me, and the first thought in his head is, "I want that." That was his first thought. I want that one.
Yep.
So he was interested. He was kind of smitten right from the moment, right from moment one. But yeah, and we just became friends, and we went to events, went to dinners every once in a while, and just became had really great in-depth conversations. And as time went on, those conversations got real, more and more in depth and a little bit more involved. We started to realize, okay, this really is a very significant person. He's intelligent, and
Mhm.
he's smart and respect, all these
And
things.
he's
And
kind.
yes,
That's
exactly.
something
He's
that our dad
kind.
never was.
No, no, that's yes, that's a very, very good term to put. And it's so simple, but he's kind,
Yeah.
and he's
And
respectful and
honest.
respectable and honest. Yes.
Yep.
So yeah, and and again, and like my ex-husband, in many ways, made himself to not be respectable and made himself to not be, an admirable person. But yeah, and then after a while, we both just kind of at this similar times, like within weeks and months of each other, we suddenly decided, you know what, I'm tired. I'm done being alone. I'm done being single. I'm ready to put in the effort to enter in a different relationship. And then all of a sudden, okay, yeah, it's time for me to take my friend out for dinner. Okay, fine. Well, suddenly this conversation that we have gets a little bit more involved, a little bit, oh, maybe there's something actually here. And I mean, within weeks, we decided, you know what? I think we want to pursue an actual proper, romantic relationship, and it was done.
Yeah.
And it was done.
I
Yeah.
remember those weeks. You were a little stressed, but at the
I'll
same
bet.
time kind of twittery, like it
Yeah.
was kind of fun to watch.
Yeah. Stressed because this was a type of relationship I'd never had. This was so foreign to me, in that, okay, where's this guy coming from? What is he
This
talking
guy
about?
is nice, he's smart, he's kind, he's got a job, he's all of these things. What's
Mhm.
wrong? Where's the other
Yeah,
shoe gonna fall? And I
yeah,
remember that very
exactly.
specifically being
Hmm.
part of your thought process was, "What's
Hmm.
wrong with him that he wants
Yeah,
me?"
yeah,
Mm,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's, I mean, yeah, that was something that I had to trust, and to extend that trust in him,
yep,
that when he says that he's attracted to me, when he says that he loves me, when he says that he wants me in his life,
yeah,
that I can trust that he means it. He's
yeah,
sincere, he's genuine, and yeah. So yeah,
yeah,
that was definitely something that was new for me to learn, um, after all decades of my life, to finally have that experience that I can trust that
For
when
sure.
he says he loves me. I mean, there's still that, that inner saboteur, if you've ever heard that phrase, that inner saboteur that still sparks up every once in a while. And I love my girl. Does he really? But who's he trying to convince, himself or me? There's
Yeah.
still every once in a while those little whispers that still poke in my head.
Those
Less and
ants.
less often. Yeah, those ants. That's right. Not as often as they sure used to, but they're still there. But
Yeah.
we talk about the pets as well. Is you know how do I turn that around, and what do I how do I confront that? He is an honest and genuine person. So when he says he loves me, when he says he's glad to have me in his life, I can trust that because
Yeah.
he is trustworthy in every other aspect of his life. I can
Yeah.
trust that. And I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just for those who have not heard of ants and pets,
Yes.
ants is
Yes.
automatic negative thoughts. Pets are purposeful, encouraging thoughts. So you need pets to get rid of the ants.
That's right.
And that's
Yes.
kind of how we do it around here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
all right, Sissy. So I'm just going to
Yeah.
say right now, this is going to be
Mhm.
good for tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you for being so open, and thank you for being so articulate with what you've had to say tonight. I really appreciate this time. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you. You're welcome. And thank you for having me. Thank you for having this conversation for other people to hear, and for other people to make use of that as they will.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we have this forum to be able to address these things that for so many decades were just quiet and were whispered about. Yeah. Oh, I
Okay.
see that.
So
I
we
see
have
that pop up.
one comment from TKD for Life. I met her on Tommy Scoville's channel, um,
Yes.
The Lifeboat, and she has started a new channel as well, and she'll be able to go live. She's starting this
Oh,
Saturday. So go to her channel, Surviving Together, and I am really looking forward to seeing how she deals with her own past, how she looks toward
mhm,
her own future, and who
right.
she's able to interact with in order to get
Oh,
this
fantastic.
whole ball rolling. So I'm really
Yes.
looking forward to seeing how you do there. Thank you so much, and I
Thank
will
you.
talk to you later, my sweet.
We'll talk to you later. Love you.
Have
Bye
a
bye.
great night, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye bye.